think people in general are hoping for more clarity. I don't think anyone really has a good grasp on exactly what to do. But like I said, the restaurant industry was kind of left in a really difficult position.
I can understand surviving for a week or two, but what happens if this goes till July, which is what they're saying?
There's roughly about 1,000 jobs being lost a day here. There's a huge difference between Monday of this week and today.
From the Zoomerplex in historic Liberty Village, the Zoomer with Marissa Lennox.
Hello and welcome to the Zoomer. Healthcare workers and governments are scrambling to stop the spread of the deadly COVID-19 virus. As the world grinds to a standstill, how are average citizens dealing with this stark new reality? In this special episode of the Zoomer, we take a trip around the world to see how people are coping with COVID-19. But before we dive in, let's tee up the topic.
Coronavirus has brought the world to a grinding halt. Hundreds of millions of people have been impacted as the virus makes its way around the world. Simple tasks like grocery shopping, getting medications, seeing a doctor, and visiting friends are suddenly more complicated, if not impossible. And how people cope varies, particularly as governments respond differently to the pandemic. From stocking up on face masks and disinfectant wipes to self-isolation and even singing from the windows. People around the world are finding unique ways to survive and support one another. And with the world hunkering down, what are the chances there's a baby boom coming in about 9 months' time? History suggests pretty good.
Welcome back. We're reaching out to the world today for a global perspective on daily life in this special episode of the Zoomer. We go now to Palm Springs, California, where life has changed drastically for residents as a result of an emergency lockdown. Joining us on the line is Ed. Thanks for joining us, Ed. What's the situation like in Palm Springs right now?
Well, the entire city's on lockdown, which is actually there's a stay in order. Basically, what that means is unless you have a reason to be out, they don't want you out. We have essential services that are open, but restaurants are closed, bars are closed. Basically, anything that has people 10 or more that get together are closed.
Are there any consequences for people that leave the house to go for a run?
Well, here's the thing. California right now, in San Francisco and San Bernardino, they're actually making a misdemeanor. They haven't quite done that in Palm Springs yet, but I'm pretty sure that's next to come. Thing is, Palm Springs has a really high concentration of elderly. It's more of a retirement town. So they're cracking down as much as they can from people being outside.
How has this affected you personally?
Well, personally, I'm a travel agent. So I'm in the travel industry, which has been completely decimated.
Totally.
I have been self-quarantined for about 13 days. Not because I'm ill, it's because I actually work from home. And personally, I'm a little too afraid to be outside. And yeah, so it's a very awkward time.
Do you live alone?
I do.
So that must be hard. I mean, to be isolated for that long and potentially for many more weeks after that.
But I really don't have much of a choice. I sometimes will go days without seeing a human being. I order everything in. So I have my food shipped in. I have everything else shipped in. For me personally, even though, I'm 47, I'm in that mid-range where it's not that critical, but I'm asthmatic. So that scares me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah.
That would certainly, make you somewhat more vulnerable than someone who is in perfect health, that's for sure.
It's a respiratory disease. So.
That's right. That's right. So that must be scary. So how are you coping in this? And what do you, how do you spend your, are you able to work still remotely? I guess there isn't much travel going on.
No, my business has completely shut down.
Yeah.
I haven't had an inquiry or anything to book in well over 2 weeks.
Right.
Nobody's traveling. And even if they wanted to travel, there are no aircraft because most airlines have reduced their capacity by about 50 to 60%.
But what,
And generally, people are too afraid to fly.
but what about
So,
people wanting to unravel their trips? I mean, I imagine you'd be hit hard with a lot of requests for that, no?
well, I mean, there's been a lot of cancellations and refunds. So, I mean, every day is something new. It's either I'm no longer going on this trip, but technically my phone has been silent, and which makes it more eerie. And yeah, so I haven't really what I do to spend my day. Literally, I get up, I walk my dogs, and I go spend time in my backyard. Luckily, I have a little backyard there, and it's sunny, and I just try to do the best I can. Just try and stay positive
You know,
because
one silver lining is we all work so hard in life, so sometimes a break is not so bad. But I do need to ask, like, what would it mean if the travel industry doesn't resume in the next few weeks? What does that mean for you?
well, I try not to think about that, but what that means is I have absolutely no more income,
Yeah.
and it does become quite worrisome. And luckily, what I did was because I'm in the industry, I kind of had a little bit of a heads up. Well, as soon as I heard that they were stopping flights going into China, I did have that inner feeling that this was going to get worse before it got better. So I was able to stock up on food. I stocked up on dog food. I stocked up on water. Even though the government is saying don't hoard food, um, it's when you go to the grocery store and you start seeing empty shelves, you have no choice but to start panicking. Now, that's probably the worst thing one could do. But, I've just got into survival mode.
Yeah.
So I just buy as much as I can. And so that makes me feel a little better because I'm taking care of food wise and water wise as opposed to financial. I mean, it is what it is. So, and luckily, we're all in the same boat. Banks know it, landlords know it, and we just have to work together and work something out. I'm not even gonna worry about the financial part. I was more worried on being able to sustain myself for. 'Cause I have a feeling this is gonna get worse before it gets better.
And I think that a lot of people feel the same way. And that hoarding instinct, I think, is natural in this environment. Now, how do you think your government has handled this crisis so far?
Um, well, that's an interesting question. I think, for me personally, I feel they've dropped the ball. I think more could have and should have been done sooner. We're still behind on the testing, way behind South Korea and other countries. Now, I know that there's this whole idea of, not breaking people's civil rights, and I understand that. But personally, I think there should have been an order where, the entire city should be locked down. That should have been done ages ago. And people should have been for 14 days. I mean, they did it in Wuhan, and now it's showing that they have less infections. I don't know if that would have been the case here, but I think it should have been done sooner. And it just feels like it's a little late.
I think a lot of people might feel the same way as you, that it's just a little too late to have reacted,
Right.
especially given the
I
fast
mean,
speed.
they're telling us to be over prepared or overreact as opposed to underreact or underprepared. But meanwhile, it feels like they're not giving us anything to feel that we're safe. Every time I turn on the TV, and I hear the government speaking, and it doesn't make me feel better. In fact, every time I hear them speak, it makes me feel worse and scarier. So,
What are your, long-term concerns, fears as we move forward?
well, my long-term fears, one of it, it feels I don't know if the stock market is going to go even lower. I know that the chances of having, a depression like we did in the 30s are probably unlikely, but that's what it feels like. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen if the stock market goes further down. I don't know what's going to happen if, we're shut down for a month and people can't pay their bills. I mean, I can understand surviving for a week or two, but what happens if this goes till July, which is what they're saying? Um, you know, and I mean, I know for myself and a lot of my family members, 2 weeks is survivable, but 3 months, and to have a check for $1,500 from the government doesn't seem to cut it. Here we don't have universal health care. So, God forbid any one of us gets sick. And, it's just, for me, it's a living nightmare for me. And every time I wake up in the morning, I feel that this is not really happening, but it is. And maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe it's not as bad. I don't know. All I know is that it just feels it's a scary moment right now.
All right.
Time.
Well, I wish you all the best, Ed. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Take care. We are pausing for a short break. More of our special episode of theZoomer, Coping with COVID-19, a Global Perspective, when we come back. Stay tuned.
London is overall, like you said, doing a good job of keep calm and carry on.
We're reaching out to people around the world for their take on daily life. We're going to the largest city in England and the UK. London boasts a population close to 9 million and is considered the financial capital of Europe. Melanie joins us online now. Melanie, thanks for being here. What is life like in London today?
Thank you for having me. It's quite different. It changes on a daily basis, actually. If I think about what things were like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, watching all of this unfold, it's quite different, quite isolated.
What do you mean by different? What has the government ordered and what are people doing in response?
Each day things are pulled back in terms of what we can and can't do. We're still waiting for a lot of clarity on a lot of different things, particularly the hospitality industry and restaurants. Last week, people were told they shouldn't be going to bars, clubs, and restaurants. However, restaurant owners were not officially told to close. So it was very confusing for what they should do and what people should do. So that's been a very big change. Schools closed for the most part today. However, throughout the week, you would see schools kind of pulling back on different year groups that would be coming to school, but next week it'll be quite different.
You mentioned bars and restaurants. Now, the government hasn't specifically ordered that they close, you say. Are they busy?
Not from what I hear. Over the past week, I haven't personally visited any, but in talking to people through communicating in social media or different people that I know on the telephone, it's quite a different atmosphere. For example, in pubs, British people are still going to pubs on a much smaller level than they were before, but something you didn't see perhaps a week or two ago is the idea of keeping that 1 meter or 2 meter space in between you and somebody else.
What do you make of your government's response to COVID-19 so far?
I think people in general are hoping for more clarity. However, I don't think anyone really has a good grasp on exactly what to do.
Melanie, now you're a food and travel blogger. How have you been personally affected by this?
It's quite difficult. I think travel bloggers, it's quite difficult to decide what kind of content to publish right now. Because there is a lockdown on travel globally.
Right.
Plus, you also want to be sensitive to what people are experiencing. So there's a lot of confusion on should you be posting, what kind of content is valuable for people to see. Can you recycle old content knowing that we're going to be restored to a new type of equilibrium later and people will again start traveling? So just the idea of what's appropriate to publish. And then I write a lot about food and travel. So just watching restaurant after restaurant post on Instagram how they are having to close, is heartbreaking because you know these people and
That's right.
you know they have quality products. So I attended actually a week and a half ago a launch party for a restaurant, and a few days later they wrote that they were going to have to close.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult to know what to do and what's right to support people and to be sensitive at the same time.
That must be just so heartbreaking. Do you have any fears moving forward? Any long-term fears, Melanie?
I would say not too much different than most people. Of course, if you get all your information from social media, I think your anxiety level is going to be quite high. One of the things I'm worried about for London and just my experiences here is a lot of people have gone to more local businesses because the bigger shops are experiencing the panic buying. And so the local shops are being hugely supported right now. And I wouldn't say this is, one of my most prominent fears, but I hope when we do get back to our new equilibrium that people are still supporting those local businesses.
Yeah.
Because they will really need it.
For sure. We're definitely seeing that here too. My husband actually is the owner of a small business locally in the town that we live in, and he has certainly been deeply affected by all of this. How about glimmers of hope? Have you seen any light at the end of the tunnel, in the last few days, weeks, perhaps?
Again, I'm going to go back to what people are doing for emergency services. I think their appreciation in the not just London community, but hopefully the global community has certainly grown. And I'd really like to see all the discounts that businesses are offering now, hopefully continue in some capacity for emergency service workers, especially the NHS, who are exhaustively doing everything they can to help.
One of the things, we're seeing around the world is just sort of this sense of panic. And, I'd be remiss to not ask, are you seeing that on the grounds there too? Are your grocery shelves being depleted? Is there a shortage of toilet paper? And what are people really doing about it?
All of the above on the shortages, which does surprise me as an American living in London, because that was one of the first things that I really learned about the culture here, is that kind of motto of keep calm and carry on really resonates in the British culture and lifestyle. And for the most part, you still see that now, except for the panic buying in the grocery stores. And you're seeing CEO after CEO of all the major grocery stores and supermarkets here coming onto television saying there's no need for this. You might have some of your exports that are coming from countries that are hardest hit that are not readily available. But as far as our own stock, we're fine. It's just a matter of us being able to set up larger distribution, transportation to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I see the panic buying as really what I think separates us from what I think could happen in America.
Okay, Melanie, well, before we leave you, any final thoughts you'd like to leave with our audience today?
No, I think London is overall, like you said, doing a good job of keep calm and carry on. And I really hope that when this is all over, that we remember the local businesses that have struggled, and we support them.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Stay safe. Please keep us
Thank
posted
you.
on future developments.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
It's time for a short break. We have more of our special coverage of theZoomer, coping with coronavirus, a global perspective, next.
We are sitting here and wait until they will open the island again, that we can move on to our second home. And if it's not happening, we will maybe then go back to Switzerland.
We've reached out to people from all corners of the world to get their feedback on COVID-19. We go all the way to Denia, a port city on the Mediterranean coast of South Spain. Now to hear the very latest about the situation there from Guido, who got trapped there while on holiday. Guido, thanks for joining us. You know, what happened to you that led you to be trapped in Spain?
Yeah, so our plan was to go on a holiday trip with a little Volkswagen caravan. And then we started the journey 1st of March, and we went down to France and go up to north of Spain, visit some friends, and then the situation get more and more difficult, and we decided to go all the way down to south to maybe reach the ferry to our second home on Ibiza. Unfortunately, we were maybe one day too late to reach this ferry because the island is totally closed there. And now we stay in a house of our friends, and we are sitting here and wait until they will open the island again, that we can move on to our second home. And if it's not happening, we will maybe then go back to Switzerland. But for the moment, we are sitting here, and we are somehow in a quarantine because the Spanish government decided to shut down everything. So we are not allowed to go out just for shopping, grocery shopping, and walking the dog, and that's it.
Well, I was just about to ask, what is the situation on the ground there?
Yeah, I mean, so far it's like a dead environment because nobody's on the street, just a few cars with workers. When you go shopping, grocery shopping, there are a few people who are doing their grocery, and that's it. So it's almost like, a dead city.
Are there, any food products that you're avoiding? Are grocery stores busy? Are the shelves depleted? What's the situation like with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was for grocery shopping on Tuesday, and at this time, only the eggs were sold out, and the toilet rolls were sold almost out. But apart from that, the situation was more or less okay. Not everything was available, but most of it was no problem.
Now, you said you started your trip on March 1st, is that right?
Yes.
And you didn't think maybe even then that it might be a problem?
Yeah, of course. So first, our plan was to go to Italy, to Spain, and then, of course, when we heard about these troubles, we decided not to go to Spain because to Italy, sorry, because there was already a problem in this area, and but then we decided to go to France because it wasn't really at this time to anticipate that we will get in troubles. So and then we started our journey anyway.
Now, on an emotional level, it must be difficult to be separated from the rest of your family during this time.
Yeah, well, I mean, with all the possibilities in these times, with FaceTime and so on, we are in contact with our family every day. So to be honest, it's not a big deal because we think there are much bigger problems with other people who are affected and maybe in difficult situations. So it's not the time for us to suffer about that.
Are you concerned at all that you're not at home?
No, absolutely not.
You feel safe where you are?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, that's good. It's good that you're feeling safe where you are. And obviously you're staying isolated. Any long-term concerns, Guido? I mean, I guess with the uncertainty of not knowing when you can return home.
Yeah, I think it's a bit the question of your attitude. So I'm a positive attitude person. So I think it's maybe also a balancing from our world. So I think there are pros and cons as always. And I see also a lot of opportunities long term that we can also get into maybe a bit more slower future and not running behind the money all the time, etc. So I think there is also an opportunity inside. And from my side, we decided not to waste our time and energy for all the concerns, to be ready when everything is getting more normal, that we have enough energy to start after the reset, you know.
What's the situation like in Switzerland, back home?
Yeah, the situation in Switzerland is curious because our children tell us it's not so difficult as it is in the rest of Europe, because yes, the shops are closed as well, but you can go out still. But a lot of people do not understand the difficulty of the situation, especially the very young guys who are still meeting in open areas and have some, not parties, but almost like this, big groups, etc. So they are not respecting the advices from the governments. But also the older, the risk groups, the older persons over 65, they are still going out and act as usual. And that's a bit scary.
Right. I would think so. All right. Well, Guido, that's all the time we have. Thank you for joining us. Hope you stay safe. Good luck getting home.
Yeah, thank you very much. Same to you guys.
All right. Take care. It's time for a short break. We have more of our special episode of theZoomer, Coping with Coronavirus, a Global Perspective, next.
Well, it was suggested that you don't go to these places. But that has sort of not worked that well, because people are still going to them, still going about their daily lives as normal.
Welcome back. We're speaking to people all over the world today for a global perspective on daily life in this special episode of theZoomer. We go now to Northern Ireland, in the town of Dungannon, about 35 miles from Belfast. Thank you for joining us. How would you describe the situation in Dungannon?
It's mixed between some people taking it very seriously and some people not taking it so seriously. We are starting to see effects from shops closing, but even before shops have started to close, you can see a drop in numbers on the street, cars on the road, general traffic is way down from normal. So it's starting to really kick home now that we have to be self-isolating and keeping contact down with other people.
Schools are closed as well.
Yeah.
Officially from Monday, schools are closed all over the UK, but schools here were closed this week for a school break anyway, so children are home and a lot of people are working from home, so it's just really quiet at the minute.
But you mentioned people aren't really taking it all that serious. What do you mean by that?
There's a few people are, up until today, restaurants and bars and nightclubs were still open. So it was suggested that you don't go to these places. But that has sort of not worked that well, because people are still going to them, still going about their daily lives as normal. So as of about 2 hours ago, the government has suggested that, well, not suggested, sorry, they actually have closed all bars, restaurants, cinemas, pubs, clubs, anything. Anything that where people will go to or congregate has been closed.
Do you guys know of anyone that's been infected with coronavirus?
Not personally, no.
No, okay. So, but you are staying safe, you're staying isolated, you're staying indoors?
Yeah, we've just changed our usual routine. You know, rather than going for a coffee at a coffee shop, or rather than going for something to eat maybe at lunchtime, we're not doing that. We're just sort of at the minute going from work home, possibly get some groceries, and that's it. We're not doing any major or any whatsoever cafes or restaurants at all.
Now, have you guys heard of any cases nearby?
Yes. There's been 3 or 4 cases around about 10 miles away. So far, I think here there's about 80 people infected in Northern Ireland, about 680 in the south of Ireland. There's been 1 death, and I think there's 3 deaths in the south of Ireland. So there hasn't been widespread cases of infection that we know of. But the problem is, locally in Northern Ireland, they've stopped testing. So if you thought you had it, you've actually no way of getting checked to see do you have it or not. So what they're saying is that if you have a raised temperature or a continuous cough, to self-isolate, and your entire family as well. But apart from that, there's no way of knowing if you have it. So it's leaving it very open for people to just decide themselves what to do.
Why would they stop testing?
I think the NHS were trying to basically save money, and I think they basically had said, well, look, okay, we know people's going to be infected, and what they've just said is that if you have any symptoms, just to self-isolate yourself. But I don't think that they're not completely sure on the conditions and symptoms. So they're sort of leaving it very vague, but I think that as of today, they've changed that back. They're going to start testing again.
Do you think that your health system is equipped to deal with a growing number of people infected with the virus?
The health system is not equipped, but it's such a big surge in cases and people are getting sick that basically what they are saying is that none of the health systems in Europe, at least, are equipped to deal with the numbers that they have to deal with. So there's a lot of emergency measures and a lot of money pumped into the National Health Service at the minute to deal with this whole situation. And we think, we don't know, obviously, because you're never going to know, but one of the reasons they were not testing masses of people was to try and push the money elsewhere, try and push the money into looking after the people who were getting sick, and try and set up emergency hospitals and wards and other facilities. Also, they were trying to, they called back 65,000 doctors and nurses who were recently retired and trying to get them back to work because they won't be able to deal with the numbers.
Wow. How about the economy? What are you seeing in terms of employment or unemployment numbers?
At the minute, this week has been a huge change in Northern Ireland. At the minute, there's roughly about 1,000 jobs being lost a day here. So there's a huge difference between Monday of this week and today. Wow. The big fear we have for locals is that we're probably the worst performing area in the UK for health for the NHS. So our waiting times is probably 3 times or 4 times what it be in the rest of the UK. So all of us know that the NHS is stretched locally already. The issue we have and the fear we have is that there's only 88 ICU beds in Northern Ireland for 1.9 million people. So there's that fear of once it gets really bad, what's going to happen?
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, a ton of unknowns for sure, but we appreciate you joining us and giving us this perspective. Stay safe. Keep us posted out there. We need to take a short break. We'll have more of our special episode of theZoomer, Coping with Coronavirus, a Global Perspective, when we come back.
Well, I don't know if it's exactly the fear as such. I'm more concerned about my parents, who are both 87 years old.
Welcome back to this special edition of theZoomer, Coping with Coronavirus, a Global Perspective. We are reaching out to citizens around the world to better understand their daily struggles. We are going to Tallinn now. It's the capital and largest city in Estonia. With a population of 1.3 million, Estonia is one of the least populated members of the European Union. Joining us online is Margus. Thanks for joining us, Margus. How would you describe life in Estonia right now?
Currently, there are 258 confirmed cases here in Estonia. Of course, the number is rising. I think today there were additional 16 people who were infected. Of course, there are probably many more who have been tested. Number has not been increasing that much over recent days anymore, and even though medical personnel is expecting over the weekend and over coming weeks, of course, the number to rise, there is still hope that actually the number will go down again after a couple of weeks.
Now, Marcus, are you staying isolated at home?
I stay isolated at home, yes, because I came from Cyprus last Sunday. My family is actually in Finland, where is our second home. But I decided to have 2 weeks in self-quarantine just to be on the safe side. Well, I'm well, no problems. So hopefully I can still go to Finland after a week or two, even though actually now Finland and Estonia said they have closed the borders.
Right.
Which is actually a big thing for 20,000 Estonians who work in Finland, mainly as construction workers, because they now need to decide by Sunday, either they stay in Finland, work there, stay there, but then they cannot come back home to Estonia, to their families for some weeks.
Well, and so I have to ask then, do you have any fears, short-term or long-term fears in this coronavirus environment?
Well, I don't know if it's exactly the fear as such. Of course, I'm more concerned about my parents who are both 87 years old, but I have asked them to stay at home. I'll try to help them by bringing them food. But I mean, Estonians, as we survived Soviet occupation over 50 years, I think this is of course something that we will survive as well. I'm sure about it.
Yeah, well, I'm good. I'm glad to hear that. And just lastly, how have you been keeping?
Pretty well, thank you. So everything is fine, and sun is shining. So I'm actually just about to go myself as well to have some jogging here. So yeah, I think we all just need to bear those couple of weeks, try to keep us safe, and then I hope that things get back to normal before May starts.
You and certainly the rest of the world is hoping that. All right, well, thanks for joining us, Margus. Good luck in Estonia. Hopefully life will return to normalcy sometime soon.
Absolutely.
All the best.
Good luck to you as well.
Thank you. We're pausing for a short break. More of our special episode of theZoomer, Coping with COVID-19, a Global Perspective. When we come back, stay tuned. We've reached out to people all over the world for their feedback on how this pandemic is affecting their daily lives. We go to Bochum, a city in Western Germany. We have Hannah on the line. Hannah, thank you for joining us. What's the feeling on the ground where you are?
I think it's kind of like just many people are not leaving the house, and a lot of people don't even understand why. We don't have a lockdown right now. We're just advised to stay at home. And many people do not really see the danger of corona. So yeah, it's like some people are pretty angry about the people who are not seeing the danger, and the other ones, like, they just don't care.
Why do you say that people are angry or aren't seeing the danger? Are people out ignoring the advice from government?
Yep, they are, because they just think like it won't happen to me, like, oh, I'm safe, I don't belong to the at-risk people, and they don't think that they can like give the virus to the other people, or that they can like transfer it to the other people. So that's the major problem.
Where's that misinformation coming from, do you think?
I think it's because the government just advised us to stay inside, or not really to just stay inside, but to avoid any unnecessary social contact. Because it's just an advice. So the people think like, oh yeah, I can still go out to like a cafe and meet with friends, or go to this party.
Right.
Even though most events are like prohibited or like canceled. So, but the people just, most of them, like they don't care, especially elder people. Like I saw two women on the internet. They were booking a trip, a 3-day trip to Berlin right now, and they were like 80, so they were definitely at risk. And they were just like, yeah, I don't care.
All right, well, what are you doing in this environment? Are you taking it seriously, or are you not so concerned?
I'm really concerned because 80% of my family, including me, are at risk. So I'm staying inside basically the whole day. I'm only like maybe going out on the balcony and like reading, but not meeting any people other than my parents.
So in this environment, you're obviously staying isolated. Do you live alone?
No, I live with my parents.
Okay. Well, how have you guys been coping then? You know, staying in. At least you have, I guess, your parents to give you some company.
Yeah, I also I talk to my friends on the phone a lot. We like also do a lot of video calls, so we like meet each other online. Other than that, yeah, my parents, they both still need to work. My mom's a radio journalist, so she will also need to keep working even when we have a lockdown, which will hopefully come soon. And my dad, he can also do home office, but he's not allowed to do it yet. Right. So like during the day, I'm also home alone, so I just see them on like in the evening. So I don't know, it's a weird feeling because right now I have the impulse just to go outside because the weather is beautiful, like we have blue sky and everything. But it's really like I have to be happy just sitting on the balcony. But I think that's the price to pay for health. So
We talked a little bit earlier about the government response. Do you think they should be doing more?
I think I'm really in favor of a lockdown. Other than that, I'm quite happy with the government's response.
All right, well, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for joining us. Stay safe, be well.
You too.
Take care. And that wraps up this special edition of theZoomer, Coping with COVID-19, a Global Perspective. We hope all of you at home are safe and sound during these uncertain times. Thank you for watching.